shocking truth. Ava Gardner's broken marriages veiled deep pain. Ava Lavinia Gardner was born on a small, struggling tobacco and cotton farm near the hamlet of Grabtown, North Carolina, on Christmas Eve, 1922. It was a world removed from the glamour she would later inhabit. Her family was poor, very poor. Her parents, Jonas and Mary Elizabeth Gardner, were hard-working tenant farmers who often struggled to make ends meet, especially after her father developed lung disease from working in the tobacco fields. They lived in a modest house with no electricity or running water, a stark contrast to the palatial homes of her future Hollywood peers. Ava was the youngest of 7 children, growing up in a large, close-knit family that knew the meaning of hardship and simple pleasures. She was a tomboy, running barefoot through the fields, described by those who knew her then as shy, fiercely independent, and possessing a natural, stunning beauty she seemed completely unaware of. She wasn't dreaming of movie stardom. She was dreaming of escaping the farm, maybe becoming a secretary. This was the authentic Ava, a country girl with a proud spirit, unpolished and real. This stark contrast between her humble, grounded roots and the artificial, often brutal, world of Hollywood fame is crucial to understanding the woman and the secrets she would become. It was a journey from dirt roads to red carpets, from simplicity to agonizing complexity. Ava Gardner's entry into the movie business wasn't sought after. It found her. The tale is now part of Hollywood lore. After finishing school, she visited her older sister Beatrice, or Bappy, and her husband Larry Tarr in New York City. Larry, a professional photographer, was struck by Ava's natural beauty and took some portraits of her. He displayed one of these photographs in the window of his studio on Fifth Avenue. And there it was, a spark waiting to ignite. A talent scout from Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, one of Hollywood's most powerful studios, spotted the photo. He saw something electric, something raw and captivating. He arranged a screen test. Ava, nervous, untrained, and speaking with a thick Southern accent that studio executives found almost unintelligible, was, by all accounts, awkward. But the camera loved her face. The studio head, Louis B. Mayer himself, is said to have greenlit her contract with the now famous phrase, "She can't sing, she can't act, she can't talk. She's absolutely wonderful." So, in 1941, a shy 19-year-old Ava Gardner was whisked away from North Carolina to the Dream Factory in Culver City, California. It was a jarring transition. MGM had a plan they would build her into a star. This meant years in their rigorous studio system. Hours of acting lessons, not just for technique, but to shed her natural mannerisms. Intense voice coaching to eliminate the Southern drawl. Etiquette classes, dance lessons. Endless sessions with makeup artists and hairstylists to create the perfect Hollywood look. She was a sculpted product, her natural beauty honed and packaged for the masses. For her first 5 years at MGM, Ava was a contract player languishing in obscurity. She appeared in dozens of films, mostly in bit parts, often uncredited. She played hostesses, models, girls next door, roles that barely utilized her potential. She felt frustrated, like she was wasting away. This early period was a hard lesson in the artificiality and control of Hollywood. She was a country girl trying to find her footing in a world of illusion, already sensing the conflict between the person she was and the star she was being forced to become. The pivotal moment arrived in 1946. Ava was cast as the sultry, double-crossing femme fatale, Kitty Collins, in the film adaptation of Ernest Hemingway's short story, The Killers. It was a role that demanded more than just beauty. It required presence, intrigue, and a dangerous allure, and Ava delivered. The film was a critical and commercial success, and Ava Gardner's performance was a revelation. The world suddenly saw the full force of her screen presence. She wasn't just the pretty girl anymore. She was a captivating actress with a magnetic appeal. Her portrayal of Kitty Collins established her as a complex, sensual screen siren, a departure from the wholesome images often preferred by the studios. It was the role that defined her iconic image and launched her into the stratosphere of stardom. From that moment on, Ava was a leading lady. MGM, realizing what they had, began casting her in bigger, more prestigious productions. She starred as the tragic mulatto Julie Laverne in the lavish musical Showboat 1951, a challenging role she handled with emotional depth. Then came her Oscar-nominated performance as the world-weary Eloise Kelly in Mogambo 1953, showcasing a wit and vulnerability beneath the glamour. Roles in critically acclaimed films like The Barefoot Contessa 1954, where she played a Spanish dancer turned movie star, and Night of the Iguana 1964, based on the Tennessee Williams play, solidified her reputation as a talented actress capable of tackling complex characters. She worked with the greatest directors and acted alongside the biggest names in the business: Clark Gable, Humphrey Bogart, Gregory Peck, Burt Lancaster. Her image was cultivated to perfection, the independent woman, the woman who men desired and women admired. She was featured on countless magazine covers, her face synonymous with glamour and allure. Hollywood had successfully transformed the country girl into an international superstar, a symbol of sensuality and freedom. But this dizzying height of fame came at a price, exposing her private life to unprecedented scrutiny and creating the very conditions that would give birth to her deepest, most painful secrets. The brighter the spotlight, the deeper the shadows it cast. While her public image was meticulously managed glamour, Ava Gardner's private life was a whirlwind of passion, conflict, and ultimately, heartache. She approached relationships with the same intensity she brought to her acting. Her first marriage, to fellow MGM star Mickey Rooney in 1942, was the union of two of Hollywood's hottest young commodities. He was the wholesome boy next door. She was the rising siren. The marriage lasted just 4 years, reportedly strained by Rooney's infidelity and their vastly different personalities. Her second marriage, in 1945, was to the brilliant but famously difficult bandleader Artie Shaw. This was a different kind of passion, intense, intellectual, and deeply unsettling for Ava. Shaw was a demanding, critical partner who reportedly made her feel insecure about her lack of education. This marriage lasted barely a year but left a lasting mark on Ava, pushing her towards reading and intellectual pursuits, but also exposing her to a volatile, emotionally draining dynamic. These early marriages were tumultuous, preparing her, in a way, for the emotional roller coaster that was yet to come. But it was Frank Sinatra who would dominate her heart, her life, and become the central figure in her most profound drama. They met in the late 1940s. Sinatra was a singing sensation, adored by millions, but also a complex, insecure man known for his volatile temper. He was married with children when he and Ava first crossed paths, but the connection was instantaneous, a spark that ignited into a raging inferno. Their affair was perhaps the biggest scandal Hollywood had seen in years. The press hounded them relentlessly. Sinatra, then with Columbia Records, faced boycotts and negative publicity that damaged his career. Ava was labeled a homewrecker. Yet, despite the public condemnation and the immense pressure, they were drawn to each other with an almost desperate intensity. They tried to stay away. They couldn't. They fought constantly. They broke up. They made up, their tempestuous romance playing out on the world stage. It was a passionate obsession, a destructive addiction they couldn't break free from. Finally, after Sinatra's contentious divorce, he and Ava married in 1951. The world watched, fascinated. Here were two of the most captivating, most powerful, most volatile personalities in entertainment, bound together. Publicly, they were the ultimate power couple, radiating charm and sex appeal. But privately, the storm was just beginning. What the cameras didn't capture, what the breathless magazine articles conveniently omitted, was the reality of their life behind closed doors. This wasn't a fairy tale marriage. It was a relentless, brutal emotional war zone. And it was within the confines of this stormy union that Ava Gardner would experience the deepest pain. make the most agonizing choices, and bury the secret that would haunt her for the rest of her days. The groundwork for her most profound suffering was laid. In the glossy pages of fan magazines, they were the epitome of passionate love. Off-screen, they were locked in a cycle of explosive conflict that bordered on emotional warfare. Sinatra, a man of immense talent and charisma, was also notoriously volatile, insecure, and prone to fits of rage and jealousy, especially where Ava was concerned. He resented her continued success while his career struggled briefly in the early 1950s. He was fiercely jealous of her co-stars, even friendships. According to accounts from Ava herself in her memoir, and from those close to them, their arguments weren't just shouting matches, they were physical, destructive battles. There were reports of furniture being smashed, dishes being thrown, violent rows that left them both emotionally, and sometimes even physically, bruised. Sinatra's jealousy was a constant, suffocating presence. He would call her relentlessly when she was on location filming, demanding to know who she was with, questioning her loyalty. Ava, with her independent spirit, refused to be completely controlled, which only seemed to fuel his fury. Their relationship was a toxic dance of intense love, followed by bitter recriminations. Breakups followed by passionate reconciliations. It was exhausting, exhilarating, and ultimately, deeply damaging. Ava desperately loved Sinatra, and there were moments of genuine tenderness and connection. She even used her influence at MGM, reportedly, to help him secure the role in From Here to Eternity 1953 that revitalized his career, a testament to her loyalty and love despite the chaos. But the emotional toll was immense. She was living in a state of perpetual anxiety, never knowing when the next fight would erupt, constantly trying to navigate his unpredictable moods. The man she adored was also the source of her deepest pain. This was the open secret among their friends and colleagues. The legendary passion came with legendary conflict. But the true secret, the one she buried deepest, was far more personal, far more agonizing. Beneath the public facade of the glamorous, independent woman, Ava Gardner was also a woman who longed for stability, for a family. Despite her wild image, she had a maternal side, a desire for the traditional comforts she had grown up with in North Carolina, and she wanted children. But how could she possibly bring a child into the unrelenting chaos of her life with Frank? The constant fighting, the moving from place to place, the sheer emotional instability of their existence was no environment for a vulnerable life. This brutal reality led to the secret that tormented her for decades, the one she finally revealed in her memoir with raw honesty. She had abortions during her marriage to Frank Sinatra. In the early 1950s, abortion was not only illegal in most of the United States, but carried an immense social stigma. It was a procedure performed in secret, often dangerously, shrouded in shame and judgment. For a woman as famous as Ava Gardner, the risk of exposure would have been catastrophic, destroying her carefully crafted image and her career. So, the decision, and the act, had to be buried in the deepest secrecy. According to her memoir, she terminated 2 pregnancies during her time with Sinatra. She loved Frank, but she knew, with chilling clarity, that their love was a destructive force, not a nurturing one. Imagine the internal struggle, the desire for a child, the societal pressure, the emotional burden of her chaotic marriage, culminating in a decision she felt was the only one possible given the circumstances. It was a choice born of desperation, of a painful assessment of the reality of her life with Sinatra. It was not a decision made lightly, or without profound consequence. Carrying the weight of this secret, of these lost potential lives, was a heavy, invisible burden. It was a source of deep sadness, regret, and perhaps even guilt, that no amount of glamour or fame could erase. While the world saw the vibrant star, the animal living life to the fullest, Ava herself was often grappling with the quiet, agonizing pain of those moments, those choices made in the shadows. This was the secret wound, the trauma that fueled her later cynicism, her reliance on alcohol as a way to numb the pain, her difficulty in forming lasting, stable relationships after Sinatra. She often felt isolated, even when surrounded by people, haunted by the memories she couldn't share. The tumultuous marriage to Sinatra, with its relentless fighting and emotional exhaustion, coupled with the secret pain of the abortions, created a deep well of suffering within her. She put on a brave face. She partied. She lived loudly, but the internal cost was immense. Biographers and friends later reported seeing a different side of Ava, one prone to melancholy, quick to anger when the subject of her past came up, visibly carrying the scars of her time with Sinatra. She tried to move on, divorcing Sinatra in 1957, escaping the daily torment. She moved to Spain, seeking refuge and a different pace of life. But the emotional baggage, the secrets, followed her. You can change your location, but you can't escape your own mind, your own history. For decades, she remained guarded about this period, especially the deepest parts of her pain. The public narrative focused on the passionate romance, the volatile breakup, the ongoing complex relationship she maintained with Sinatra until his death. But the true depth of her suffering, the specific, heartbreaking choices she made in secret, remained largely hidden. The world knew about the fights, the jealousy, the glamour and the drama, but they didn't know the secret cost, the personal sacrifices, the profound sadness she carried. Not fully, not until she decided it was time for the truth to be heard. The secret was dormant, buried under years of life and distance, but it wasn't gone. It was waiting for its moment to surface. After leaving Spain, Ava settled in London in the 1970s. She lived a quieter life, though she still enjoyed socializing and maintained friendships with a loyal inner circle. Her acting roles became less frequent, less demanding. She was still Ava Gardner, the legend, but the intense pressure of Hollywood's spotlight had faded. However, the toll of her life, particularly the years of stress and the coping mechanisms she had developed, began to show. A lifelong heavy smoker and drinker, Ava's health deteriorated significantly in her final years. She suffered from emphysema and other respiratory issues. Then, in 1986, came a major blow, a severe stroke that left her partially paralyzed and impaired her speech. It was a cruel twist of fate for a woman whose image and voice had been her livelihood. She required constant care, and her financial situation, despite her fame, became precarious, partly due to the medical expenses. It was during this difficult period, facing her own mortality and in need of funds, that a proposition was made that would finally bring her deepest secrets into the light. A British writer, Peter Evans, approached her about collaborating on her autobiography. Ava, initially reluctant, perhaps sensing a final opportunity to tell her story, her way, agreed. The process was challenging. Ava could be difficult, opinionated, and still protective of certain aspects of her past. But as they talked, hour after hour, day after day, the dam began to break. With remarkable candor, and perhaps driven by a need for catharsis before the end, Ava began to reveal the hidden truths. She talked about the pressures of MGM, the loneliness, the early failed marriages. She spoke at length, and with raw emotion, about the tumultuous, soul-destroying love affair and marriage to Frank Sinatra, the fighting, the jealousy, the constant chaos. She didn't hold back, recounting the highs and devastating lows with brutal honesty. And then came the most revealing, most agonizing part of her story, the secret she had kept buried for so long. She spoke about the overwhelming desire for a family, and the impossibility of achieving that with Frank. And she revealed, in stark, unambiguous terms, her decision to have abortions during that period, detailing the pain and the lasting regret. This was the truth that had haunted her. The secret that she had carried in silence for decades, a private sorrow known only to a very few, was now being dictated for the world to read. The completion of Ava, my story, marked the moment the secret was truly out in the open. It was published shortly before her death. The book was not just another celebrity memoir. It was a confession, a catharsis, a final, courageous act of a woman laying bare her deepest wounds. It confirmed the rumors, clarified the gossip, and showed the world the depth of pain that lay beneath the legendary beauty and defiance. Ava Gardner did not survive long after sharing her story. She passed away peacefully at her London home on January 25, 1990, at the age of 67, succumbing to pneumonia. The passing of Ava Gardner marked the end of an era. She left behind an indelible mark on cinema, a legacy built on undeniable beauty, raw talent, and a screen presence that captivated generations. Her films continue to be celebrated. Her image remains iconic. But her true legacy is perhaps best understood through the lens of the secrets she finally revealed. Ava, my story, isn't just the tale of a Hollywood star. It's the brave, raw account of a woman's survival. It exposed the intense pressures, the emotional compromises, and the devastating personal cost of living life in the glaring, unforgiving spotlight of Hollywood. It showed that behind the carefully constructed image, there was a vulnerable, complex woman grappling with profound pain and making agonizing choices in secret. Her story, with all its glamour, drama, and hidden sorrow, serves as a powerful reminder that even the brightest stars cast the longest shadows. By finally sharing her secret, the brutal reality of her most famous marriage, and the painful sacrifices it entailed, Ava Gardner didn't diminish her legend. She deepened it, revealing the extraordinary resilience of the woman behind the myth. She was the most beautiful animal in the world, yes, but she was also a human being, flawed, hurt, and in the end, courageous enough to let her most painful truth finally be seen. Her secret was out, and in sharing it, Ava Gardner found a final, powerful form of freedom.